Hey everyone, I am Justin, and with me as always is Kyle, and we are the Fantasy Football Upside. All right, today, Kyle, we're going through our players to avoid list. So these are the guys that we think you need to avoid during your fantasy football draft here in 2020. So even if these guys
and we're not talking about the other fantasy football players, we're talking about the NFL players.
Absolutely.
Generally, you should just avoid fantasy football players. So.
Usually.
Yeah.
Kyle, we're talking about, like, if these guys are falling on your draft board or falling in the draft, I mean, there's a reason for that. Mm-hmm. And we still don't want you really drafting these guys, because if you do that, that could ruin your draft. And you know what, Kyle? You really don't want to be that guy.
No, don't be that guy.
Don't want to be that guy. Don't be that guy. Yeah. So remember, win your draft, and you're going to win your league. So real quick, before we get into it, Kyle, if you want to learn who to draft, when, what players to start, and to grab off the waiver wire, do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit that thumbs up. Leave a comment if you have a question. Really would help us out if you do that. So we're going to be uploading every Tuesday and Thursday during this offseason. Now, once that fantasy football draft season really gets going, we're going to be releasing more and more episodes. And we do like to do some Friday episodes of mock drafts. So just be tuned for that. And if you do that, hit that bell so you get the notification of when our new episodes drop. So real quick as well, Kyle, we're on podcasts.
Yep.
Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, working on some other ones to make sure we hit everybody. So stay tuned for that. But you know what? Let's just get right into it. Who are we looking to avoid, Kyle?
Yeah. All right. So, we talked about it already, kind of who we're looking at, trying to avoid, the players that are going to sink in the draft no matter, or that you should, fade in your draft. And even if they're sinking, even if they're falling down the board, there's not a point at which you really should take these guys, because in the grand scheme of it, even if you take them when like the value is right, you're still making the wrong decision, because that's not a guy who should end up in your lineup. He'd be at best an injury replacement, pretty much. So you should try. Yeah. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Yeah. So like any price in the end is just going to be too much. So even if it's like a guy who's going in the second round of every draft that you've mocked, right. If it's now the fifth round and he's still sitting on the board, trust that you're right. Let somebody else make the mistake. Pick that guy and screw their team over. Okay. Yep. So we're just going to dive headlong into this. Let's go ahead. Justin, give me your first guy off the board. Who's the first guy you have not to draft?
Right. My first guy, I think we're going to do QB, running back, wide receiver, tight end. That's what we're going to do. 4. So 2 apiece. So at QB, I have, McDreamy, Jimmy Garoppolo of the 49ers. So fantasy football calculator
you're both dating yourself with that reference, as well as indicating that your wife is the one who controls the remote.
No, actually, this was before my wife. I watched the first season of oh my gosh! See,
Grey's Anatomy.
Thank you. I watched the first season.
I am married to a medical professional, so I'm up to date.
Is that crap still going on? I think it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It's like 17 years or something like that. I don't know.
So for a reference for me, because I have a couple kids, it'd be McStuffins. I have Jimmy Garoppolo as my do not draft list. Player to avoid. Fantasy Football Calculator has him as QB 18, 5th pick in 11th round. So he's still being drafted. I don't really understand why. And here are some of the information of why I would avoid him. It's a run-heavy offense, Kyle.
Yeah.
He has a stout defense.
I mean, we've talked about this. The passing game is a 2-yard handoff. That's what it is.
Exactly. So, I mean, when you have a run-heavy offense and a stout defense, that just means your offense is not on the field that much.
Well, they're all about ball control and clock management, right? So they're the number one running offense in this league.
Yep.
And that's not just like by volume of what they achieve on the field. It's also by the plays called. They're the number one run play offense in this league. And so it plays into their defensive strength. And so Garoppolo is asked to just manage the game more than anything. So
I think he was probably one of the biggest game managers in the NFL. I mean, all that combined, I mean, that does not equal a draftable or startable player in fantasy.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
he's flashed in the past, but that's that's it. And they're not asking him to do that every game.
No.
So this isn't a guy who's going to sit in your lineup as a starter on a regular basis. And that's what you're looking for at QB is the value that's going to sit there every single day. And I think you're spot on it. I do. It's not a common thought, right? People want Jimmy Garoppolo to be really good. And I think he has it in him to be really good. The issue is that the team is not built for him to be really good. Not in fantasy. Let's not confuse the two things. He's definitely a good QB for NFL, but he's not a good fantasy QB.
For that offense, he's really good for that offense for what they're asking him to do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of limit the mistakes. But one thing you kind of want to look for as well with some of these QBs nowadays is like a nice little rushing floor. He doesn't really do that. He doesn't have that. He had a total of 62 yards last year and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't count on any kind of floor when it comes to that, or any kind of floor at all when it comes to his passing, because it could be game script where, shoot, they're going to run it 40, 50 times down your throat. I mean, I think they did that in the actual NFL playoffs to a team. I don't know how that.
I don't know who.
Kyle.
I don't know. I wasn't watching. At least during the second half,
I blacked out. I don't know.
Well, I might have. If I didn't have kids, I would have probably blacked out. Exactly. I would have been like, I'm out. I'm out. I quit. I think actually I turned the game off in the first quarter. I was just like, screw it. It was a good season. I'm done.
You and your brother Dan, I think, were both sending me messages. Like, I avoided sending messages because you just don't do that. No, I was just waiting for you. Yeah. No. But when it comes going back,
I'll tell you, I was happy with what the Packers did last year. So I was completely fine with them bowing out. I would not have wanted them to lose as poorly as they did.
Right.
But they shouldn't have been in the NFC Championship game. They were not an NFC Championship material. Like they managed to get there somehow. They overplayed themselves. So anyway, back to Jimmy Garoppolo.
I mean, the 49ers made it to the Super Bowl, and truthfully, Jimmy G's he's lacking experience, really. I mean, last year was the first time he played more than 6 games this season in the NFL. He finished 14th last year, playing all 16 games. He only had 4 top 10 finishes, Kyle. 18 other QBs had more than that for top 10 finishes. He finished 19th in pass attempts, and he's also in line for a touchdown regression. He had a 5.7% touchdown percentage, and it's usually around 4.5 to 5 is the NFL average, depending on year to year. That's going to come down a little bit.
Well, I'd also say that offense doesn't want to pass touchdowns. Like the only guy they're going to really aim for passing touchdowns would be Kittle. Your man crush.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh. What is that, Velvet?
Yeah.
There it is.
There it is.
So I mean, you don't really. I mean, you don't want him throwing that much either. I mean, for another thing is he had the 7th worst, interception percentage at 2.7%. So when he was throwing it, he was the 7th worst at interceptions.
Yeah.
So all those things combined.
Have you watched tape on him?
For success.
Have you watched any? I haven't watched any tape on Jimmy Garoppolo. Have you watched any tape on him to see if there's some sort of like just read errors or it's just like
not
skill?
Really. When it comes to like whenever I'm watching, I'm usually just watching George Kittle, like I've mentioned before in other episodes. So I mean. Exactly. I mean, they have a good connection, but it does look like, I mean, his average depth of target is not the greatest. Yeah. So he's always kind of looking for those short passes and hoping his guys take off. I mean, Debo Samuel was one of the best at run after the catch last year. And just because they were looking at a lot of just quick passes, they're not having him make a lot of reads for what it looks like. A lot of slants in that offense. Where it's one or two reads, or you're throwing it away.
Yeah, it's a Shanahan system. It's meant to remove the clutter from the QB's decision-making process, so that they can make faster decisions. And the same play is supposed to look Like 20 plays are supposed to look like the same exact play,
right?
And 19 of them are runs. So,
Yep.
I
mean, all that combined, I don't think he's a draftable player. I mean, you and I have both talked about QBs. You should only be drafting one anyways.
Yeah.
So there's no real reason to throw him on the inner bench because he's going to be there on the waiver wire anyways, or a player just like him.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's not a whole lot of difference between QB 13 to QB 24. There's not a whole lot of difference. Let's not waste a bench spot on another QB.
Yeah.
Anything else?
And do not consider for a second drafting Jimmy Garoppolo as your only QB.
I was just shocked he's still being ADP. Don't be that guy. Yeah. And he's doing 5th pick in the 11th round. Don't be that guy.
Yeah. So I think you're right on that. All right, I'll give you my guy here.
Your guy?
Not my guy, really. He's not my guy. He's not going to be my guy, and that's Daniel Jones. And a lot of people are going to probably think I'm crazy on that, right? I'm not going to take him. I'm really he's not something that I'm interested in. Right now on Fantasy Football Calculator, he's going as QB 13, pick 7 in the 9th round. This line's not good. They did upgrade with the 4th overall pick. They picked up an offensive lineman. I don't recall it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Andrew Thomas. Yeah.
But it's still a line that is really, really inept. I mean, it is like a bottom 20% of the league issue. So it's a real struggling line. Yeah. One guy can change a lot, but he's not going to change enough in the pass blocking to affect the QB. He can affect the run game as an individual more than he can as affect the pass game. I mean, so because the other 4 guys are going to be holes. They're all going to be revolving doors.
I get what you're saying. I mean, okay. Oh my gosh, what's his name? Came from New England. Nate Solder.
Yeah.
He has been banged up the last couple of years. He can stay healthy for most of the season and stay on that left side. You bring Andrew Thomas in, put him on the right side for first couple of years until Solder retires or goes on. They have invested in the line a little bit. I think they have Will Hernandez as a left guard. He was a 2nd-round pick the same year Quentin Nelson was. He's a big boy, so they still have some pieces on that line.
They're just not. They're not grading out, man. The fantasy or Pro Football Focus is not grading them out great. Like they are still grading them out as a bottom 20%. Like they're like 6th worst offensive line, and that's with this 4th round pick going in there. So they're going to struggle to really protect him. And he as a passer, he's more effective actually in the pocket. You can't just move the pocket either. Like on the move, his throws just aren't as accurate. He's facing a schedule based on 2019's numbers that is in the bottom half for QB points allowed last year. The opponents that he's facing this year. So it's not as dramatic because it's not an extreme that he's facing, but he is in the bottom half there. I want to say it's around like the 20th worst schedule or something for QBs.
Okay.
So those are just like general points, right? What you also have to look at is that he's dealing with a wide receiver room that's full of guys who are also Rams, and then Golden Tate, who's I don't know how old Golden Tate is now, but he's on his like 4th team at this point or something, right? So he's been in the league for a couple of years. He's still a very effective pass catcher. So I'm not going to discount Golden Tate for a second. But the other guys, Darius Slayton's the best guy you got in that room.
Sterling Shepard's there, yeah.
Well, Sterling Shepard, I think we've what Sterling Shepard is at this point. We know what
give you 11 yards per reception, and
I think they added Tajay Sharp or something, or somebody did. I don't know. It might as well be the same guy, right? They're all the same guy. They're all guys who are just not going to eventually turn into a wide receiver 2. They're just not. But I would consider this wide receiver room to peak at wide receiver 2. I don't see anybody there that I'm drafting with the consideration that I'm taking them as a wide receiver 1. And
no, I mean, I don't know if there's anybody in that wide receiver room that you're counting on him as being a wide receiver 1 through 3.
No, I'm not. I'm not touching that room. Maybe Golden Tate ends up as a depth piece for me if I'm getting him around the 8th or 9th round.
Right.
But that's about it. Really, that's it. And as a Packers fan, I'm probably going to fade Tate even harder than that. So, Mr. Simultaneous Catch himself, right? Look, that you've got the wide receiver room. That's a problem. Last year, Jones was one of the top guys for throwing risky passes.
Mm-hmm.
He was really inaccurate with those risky passes. He was, and here, I'll hit you with a bunch of stats for you. Okay. Right. He was 24th in pass yards, 23rd in completed air yards, and 20th in pass distance. He was 20th in pass distance. So he wasn't throwing a very deep ball.
Right.
He's 29th in passer rating, and he was 32nd in red zone completion percentage. Then he's also 28th in deep ball percentage or completion percentage. So these are all really terrible numbers for a guy who's going 13th QB off the board.
Yeah.
He's not a guy that you should even remotely consider starting. And if I'm drafting one QB, it isn't him.
Right.
It's not him. There is no upside to Daniel Jones. There's just not. So what has changed that's going to allow him to overcome these numbers? They added an offensive lineman and they brought in Golden Tate. How is that going to change Daniel Jones's outcome? It's not. Look, he was 18th in fantasy points per dropback last season.
Yeah.
He was 16th in fantasy points per game, which means that when he dropped back, he was bad. And that he elevated his game by running. That's how he went from 18th to 16th, right? Are you going to rely on a guy who did not have designed runs in the offensive scheme to gain you some leverage?
Yeah.
No, you're not going to do that. You can't get him. You can't rely on him to jump 2 places by having magically, having a good scrambling season again. So if you're relying on him, just being able to even achieve quarterback 13, I think you're making a mistake.
Quick,
go for it.
Sorry, just to go back, in case we get some Giants truthers on here. They did draft a couple more pieces for the offensive line. Matt Pert out of UConn. The guy is a huge SOB, 6'7", 3-something. And then also Shane Lemieux from Oregon. He was drafted in the 5th round. I think he kind of fell. I think they realized what they need to do, and that is to protect Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
They didn't quite add the weapons I would have liked to when it comes to, the wide receiver room. You know what I mean? They have Evan Ingram at tight end. We've mentioned Evan Ingram in the previous, episodes. Take a look at those in the tight end episode. We think he could be a guy as long as he stays healthy. So
yeah.
No,
but
I get you though.
Again, you can have
you just don't know.
Fantasy
it's so
you
inconsistent.
can have individual fantasy performers at skill positions while also not having a QB that's a fantasy performer.
Yeah.
You can have a team that's terrible while the QB or some piece of the team, some person on the team is successful as a fantasy performer.
Right.
And that's my next point, is that this team is not Daniel Jones's team. This is Saquon Barkley's team. All right. That's the guy who makes this offense actually move. That's the guy who makes this offense successful in any respect, is the run game. They have to feature the run game heavily. And I think that's why they chose to invest in the draft at lineman rather than at wide receiver, because their focus is on Saquon Barkley's success and not Daniel Jones's success. So why would you want to focus on the guy
is going to kind of overshadow some of the deficiencies of Daniel Jones?
He absolutely should. That he's entering. Saquon Barkley is entering the golden years of his career right now. He's entering the best years of his career. He's going into year, I think 3, right? And that is when a running back's real prime time is going to hit. He was successful last year. He's going to have a great year this year, and he's probably going to have a great year next year as well. So those are the big years, and they're ready to hit for him. That's what they're looking at doing. They're not looking at making Daniel Jones into your QB god of fantasy football. That's not their goal here. So why would you draft him as a QB1, even a back end QB1? There's so much better stuff that's falling behind him in the draft. We've hit that before. Matt Stafford is going behind him in the draft. So why would you take Daniel Jones over Matt Stafford, who's going to throw for 5,000 yards, right? Hashtag Mr. 5,000, right?
Trademark.
Trademark.
He's the new shiny toy. That's why.
Yeah. And the same thing happened last year with Kyler Murray. He wasn't ready for prime time exactly. He had a great season, but he wasn't a QB that you should be starting week in, week out.
Right.
Gardner Minshew ended up in people's lineups because he's the literal shiny toy with some of the outfits that he was wearing. But it's look past.
Don't you poop?
Look past the group thing. Look past the consensus attitude about a player and question why that's the consensus. And in this instance, it does not make any sense. There's a lot of East Coast guys who are putting their football rankings together, their fantasy football rankings together, and they're publishing them out there. And everybody's looking at that and going, hey, that sounds like a great idea. But the truth is that there's a lot of Giants fans out there on the East Coast who are publishing that crap. And they think that Daniel Jones is going to have a great year because they want Daniel Jones to have a great year.
Right.
But if we're going to be honest with ourselves, there's so many
Look at
better
the numbers.
guys. Yeah, there's so many better guys to take than him. Yeah, I'm giving him a hard time about a rookie year, but he started 13 games. He played 13 games, and he still was this bad. Like these are things that are within his control to improve to some extent, but things that are out of his control as well. He's not going to magically suddenly be able to throw a deep ball better. He's not going to have a depth of pass that increases because what? He had a full command of that offense. He took it away from Eli Manning. It wasn't like Kyler Murray's situation where they just abandoned all competition and said, no, you're our QB. Right. Instead, he earned the job away from Eli, meaning he had to know the offense to go out there and do it. So if he knows the offense, then why is his depth of pass like 20th, I think is what I said it was. Yeah, 20th in pass distance. So that's not something that's going to improve. That's not something that's going to change. So, yeah, I mean, I'm passing. It's a mediocre team other than Saquon Barkley or Evan Ingram. And Jones ultimately is going to provide mediocre output. So I'm leaving him where he is. I'm leaving him on the draft board. All right. So who do you have for me here at running back?
At running back, I have Mark Ingram of the Baltimore Ravens. So, yeah, fantasy football calculator, RB19, 12th pick in the third round. So he's headed into his age 31 season. And for running backs, that's not young. That is not young at all. So the thing I look at is volume is king when it comes to running backs. Everybody knows that. Volume is king. If you don't know that, that's what it is for running backs.
Now you do. Now you know.
Now, write that down. Write that down.
Write that down.
Write that down. But I mean, even for how great of a season he had for fantasy, he still handled just 37% of the team carries last year. And guess what? They went out and added the second round pick J.K. Dobbins to the roster. So, I mean, he had 15 plus carries only twice last year. That's not good. You know,
he did the same thing in New Orleans, but that was a more effective offense.
Absolutely.
In the running back game. Like the way they weren't relying on the QB to take it. So
yeah, exactly. He's in line for a huge touchdown regression, Kyle. I don't know if you've seen these numbers, but he had 202 carries.
I was just pulling up his numbers. Yeah, I see that.
10 rushing touchdowns. This is the one that really gets me. He had 26 receptions. He had 5 receiving touchdowns.
Not only that, though, he had we've talked about Lamar Jackson being in line for touchdown regression to some extent.
Oh, yeah, for passing,
But not only did he have 26 receptions, he had 26 receptions on 29 targets.
Right.
I mean, he's in line for a reception regression and a touchdown reception touchdown regression.
Yep. So, and rushing touchdown regression, in my opinion.
I mean, he was nearly 10 yards a catch too. He was 9.5 yards a catch.
I don't think that's going to happen. That's never really been part of Mark Ingram's game.
I think J.K. Dobbins was drafted with the intention of working Mark Ingram out of the out
Well,
of the team.
I think he's headed into the last year of his deal anyways, so that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And like I said, he's going into his age 31. You just don't know how much longer someone like that is going to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, and then also in the running back room, aside from J.K. Dobbins, you have Gus Edwards, who has flashed in real life and in fantasy.
Justice Hill too, right?
Justice Hill, a 6th-round pick last year, I believe it was 6th-round pick. I mean, he has flashes. Oklahoma State, I believe, is where he played. I mean, the guy is fast. So, yeah. I mean, I had him as a pass-catching running back last year towards the end of my draft. He didn't really do too much, but he still has the capability of flashing and taking over some of those third down kind of type abilities.
Another thing, they've got 5 running backs on the roster right now, right?
Who's the 5th?
D'Anthony Thomas, I think is his name.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he
got
carries last year, but he got a few carries, I think. Like less than 1% of the carries. So he's probably not going to make the team. Do you think they're going to carry 4 running backs into the season? Maybe.
I mean, it'll only be 4. I would assume there's only going to be 4. I mean, someone's got to give, and I mean,
I can't see them carrying 5 because they've already got Lamar Jackson, who they run, but they don't want to run him as much. But I think that
it says on here, D'Anthony is actually a wide receiver. He's probably had some carries. Okay. Just as a scab back kind of thing. But, he's a return specialist wide receiver. So he probably had some carries just because you do those jet sweeps and everything like that. And that's what everybody does nowadays.
Well, he's showing up. I mean, he's showing up on their roster through their depth chart as a running back.
They must have changed him then.
Yeah. But he's got, I mean, maybe what I'm looking at is wrong. Maybe, I don't know. But look, in both instances, he was less than 1%. He was less than a half percentage point of the overall offense.
Yeah.
So of the passing game or the running game. Yeah, so he's on, I don't want to say that he's insignificant, but his participation in this offense was insignificant.
Right. But I mean, like everything combined, I just can't draft him this year. Mark Ingram. I just can't do it. Another thing was all of his rushing touchdowns were inside the red zone. So basically, he never did bust anything outside of 20 yards when it comes to getting a touchdom.
So from the 20 to the 20, he's not on the field really. It sounds like.
He is, but not as much as some of the other guys. Absolutely. Okay. So he is very much trusted in that red zone. But I think once J.K. Dobbins gets on the field and shows what he can do, especially in the red zone, I'm going to assume that he's going to start taking some of that workload away from him. And I'm sure, it's John Harbaugh Ravens. They're going to want to be that team that sticks with the veterans and, goes to the guy that everybody knows. But at some point, I mean, this Ravens team should repeat what they've done last year and improve. That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
To do that, you're going to want to have the best players on the field. And I think towards the end of the season, when, fantasy football draft, playoffs start, I'm going to assume J.K. Dobbins is going to be on the field a little bit more than Mark Ingram.
Yeah.
Just because of the upside.
Yeah.
Upside.
I can envision a situation somewhat similar to what Miles Sanders was dealing with last year. I think that Ingram has shown better than Jordan Howard, especially in recent times.
Yeah,
and he's shown his ability.
Winner. Yeah.
Well, he's also shown his ability to participate in this offense effectively,
right?
In his role. But I agree. I think that J.K. Dobbins is the guy ultimately in this offense to end up owning. I've got him actually, rated pretty high.
You do have him rated really high. I
do, but that's because I see him winning this job.
Yeah. I like how aggressive you are. I think if we do a mid-year rankings, I think that would be a really good spot to have him. Because like you just said, I think it's going to turn into that Miles Sanders type role where he, he's going
to take over.
I think he's going to flash right at the beginning of the season, but it's really going to pick up towards the end, and that's when you really want to have him. So I like J.K. Dobbins as a draft pick, but it has to be towards higher 8th, 9th, 10th round.
I think Mark Ingram's pretty much cooked. Like, I do. I think that he was less than effective last year.
Right.
And that he was really only effective because everybody was more focused on Lamar Jackson.
Right.
I think that the NFL defenses figure stuff out really fast.
Really fast.
And there's going to be an awakening. And they're going to figure out how to shut down Lamar Jackson's running. They did it against Kaepernick. They did it against Vic. The league will figure it out. And when they do, the running backs are the guys that have to pick up the hoe and continue down the road on that. And I think that Ingram is not the guy that's going to be able to do that for them effectively. Look, they only put him out there really for solid carries on the outsides of the 20s, right?
Yeah.
So who's the guy who's getting the inside the 20s carries on that team?
Last year was Gus Edwards, basically.
Yeah, but I see J.K. Dobbins straight up stepping in. He's ready to play.
So talented.
Yeah, he's ready to
really
play.
That in tune, like if you really believed in Mark Ingram so much, why did you draft J.K. Dobbins? And they also some of the stuff out there saying they had a first round grade on J.K. Dobbins, and they were just plumb happy that he fell to him in the second round.
Yeah. So
that's why that might not be a popular pick for some. I mean, obviously, ADP.
Well, yeah, a lot of people are going to be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, man, I've kept Ingram in years past. I've kept him multiple times in my keeper league. And
like you said, years past.
Yeah, it's years past.
This is 2020 now.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on.
Who do you have as a running back?
Running back, I have the wonderful Le'Veon Bell. Yeah. Fading Le'Veon Bell.
Is that just because you're getting ready to talk about Adam Gase? Is that why you hit that drop?
No, that's Le'Veon that dropped too, man. Because it's like, they ruined him. He's worthless. In New York, he is worthless. When he went there, I was like, why would he choose to go there? They're just Adam Gase is never going to feature him. Yeah, but he could have gotten money. He got offers elsewhere, didn't he? I mean, maybe not as much.
Yeah, I think we all can say, well, I mean, any running back in this league, I mean, take the money. Yeah. Truthfully, just take the money. Yeah. I don't blame him from taking the money, but I'm sure there was tons of other teams that were going after him that were willing to pay him a lot less, but would have been a lot better situation. But he's a running back. Take the money.
Yeah. All right. So Fantasy Football Calculator has him going as RB14, pick 3 of the 3rd round. I'll tell you, last year he was a player I was avoiding as well. Him, David Johnson. I didn't like Joe Mixon. There were a few guys who were going in round 1 who I had decided I was not going to take. In our main league, I had the 5th pick, and those guys were all falling right there, and wide receivers were falling right there as well. I didn't want to take a wide receiver, so I jumped at Dalvin Cook there.
Yeah.
I just liked the way that the mocks all showed it playing out for me the rest of the draft. When I took Dalvin Cook first, I liked what fell in the 2nd round in my there. I didn't like it if I took a wide receiver because the running back situation was less than stellar for what I wanted, how I was building my team. Okay, so as I was saying, Le'Veon Bell, he's got a terrible situation. He's got Adam Gase bringing in Frank Gore, old trusty guy that he loves to just give the ball to repeatedly for whatever reason. I mean, Gore is, he's never ending, right? But then they drafted LaMichael Pirine, who is the cousin of
Samaje.
Yeah, but he's also the cousin of Miles Jack. If you didn't know that, down in Jacksonville. But they brought him in the fourth round.
The day.
Yeah, there you go, trivia for the day. But they brought him in the 4th round. And he could have gone a little higher than the 4th round, I think. He's going to be an effective runner. But these are 2 guys who are definitely stealing picks or carries from him. And Gore is the biggest threat to him because Gore is a volume killer. That's what he does. He steals volume from everybody when he's on a team.
As a Devin Singletary owner last year in fantasy football, I can confirm.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, the line, this line's 31st in run blocking. Yeah. Yeah. You're muted there, man. Did you mute yourself so that you could curse? Your audio dropped.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say 31st. That's not good, is it? I don't think that's good. I think there's
No.
32 teams.
Yeah, that's not good. That's bad.
That's not good.
No.
No.
The schedule for the running backs, based on last year's fantasy points allowed, relative to this year's schedule, is the 5th worst. Right. So, like I was talking about earlier, it's an extreme, right? The defenses that he's going to be facing exist on one of the extremes. So that means that not all these teams have gotten worse. Some of them might have gotten better in other areas, and as a result, they're getting worse in the run game or in the run defense. So he could, rely on that. But there's still going to be a high volume of teams that are really good at blocking, really good at stopping that run, right?
Yeah.
So you combine that with the 31st worst run blocking offensive line and a team that's going to split his carry volume with Frank Gore. It was like 3 years ago that Frank Gore was on Miami with Adam Gase, and I think he had 186 carries, and he was RB2 on that team. And the RB1, the guy who was the starter, every game had 168.
They got a couple other guys there at New York. Yeah. Josh Adams.
Yeah, they got a bunch of guys.
He flashed at Philadelphia Eagles. He's from Notre Dame. Kenneth Dixon. We were just talking about the Ravens. He played there. He just had some injury issues and I think some steroids issues.
If you disagree that Gore is going to, eat up volume, which is what Gore does, right? If you disagree with that, you have to admit that there's a lot of running back value in that room that's going to eat up carries from him. He wasn't effective last year. He really was not.
No.
There was
he got the carries last year.
Yeah, he did.
It just wasn't anybody. I mean, Bilal Powell was there, but I think. Let me
hit you with some more. Let me hit you with some more numbers though. Okay, last year they called the 7th fewest running plays in the league, and they had their
good
QB.
For a guy that wants
not only
volume.
That, but their starting QB was out 3 weeks. So wouldn't you rely on your running game more? And they were still the 7th. No, you wouldn't. Not if you're Adam Gase. You're too busy trying to catch the bats, right? Chase that beautiful, chase that dragon, right? Chase that dragon.
Ride the lightning.
Yeah. Look, I this is not an indictment on Bell or his talent. That's not why I'm saying this. Or anything about his current capabilities. It has everything to do with the situation being terrible. It is terrible for him. He's facing a certain running back by committee situation. He's facing a certain terrible offensive line and a terrible schedule to go with it for him, right? You've got a QB who hasn't panned out yet, and they got to see what they've got there. He's entering year 3. They need to know this year, at the end of this year, whether or not they're going to option his 5th year. So they need to know what they're doing with Darnold.
I think so last year was a tough year just because of what you just talked about.
He was out 3 weeks.
Yeah, but okay. Mono is something you don't just come back to after 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Like that. This is NFL.
And they still didn't run the ball.
Yeah, well, once again, is that Sam Darnold's fault? I don't think so. I guess he could have checked out of it, but he's going to get...
It's Adam Gase thinking that he can make every quarterback into some QB god.
It's Adam Gase thinking he's better than every other, coach out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. I mean, it's his ego over everybody else's.
Yeah.
And truthfully, I still don't know why this ego is being able to be a head coach in the NFL. You know what I mean? But we don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, I don't know why they hired him. Everybody said that when they hired him. It's like, what has he done to prove to be worth hiring as a head coach? Like,
he's still riding the curtails of freaking Peyton Manning in Denver.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, then he went into Chicago for 2 years and made Jay Cutler look okay. But, that was look, Jay Cutler was throwing the ball arm talent 10 yards into the dirt in front of every wide receiver. Like, yeah, it's just run from this situation. he's not even going to produce at the level of a high-end running back too. And that's where he's being drafted right now. He's going 14th running back off the board. So that's a high-end running back too.
Absolutely, it is.
He's not going to produce at that level. Pick 3 of the 3rd round. I'm not going to spend my 3rd round pick on this. I bet you he doesn't. I bet you
6 or something.
Well, hopefully, I bet you he doesn't break 180 carries.
Wow,
that
would be crazy for him because he's been a guy that's probably what? Well, I mean, if you combine touches, I mean, what did he have, like 300, 400 touches when he was at Pittsburgh?
Yeah,
I mean, the guy feasts on volume, and then he comes here. And you're like, oh, I mean, this guy's been successful with volume, but you know what? Let's not do that.
They don't even want to use him in the manner that he's most appropriately used, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, last year he had 245 carries, and he had 78 targets. That's a decent target volume, but he only had one receiving TD and 3 rushing TDs. And you can say, oh yeah, he's in line for positive, a progression there, right?
Yeah.
Positive.
So what's that mean? What's that mean in the red zone, Kyle?
It means they don't go to him.
You pay him how much money?
It means they're going to go to Frank Gore. It means they're going to go to Frank Gore. It means they're going to go to Michael P. Ryan.
That means Adam Gase is trying to get too fancy down at the freaking red zone, at the end zone. It's like, don't get fancy. Give the ball to the man.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're not bashing the player, you're bashing the situation. Because I still think he is still talented enough because he still flashes that elite, vision that he's had forever.
Put him in a different situation. I'm taking him in the 2nd or 1st round.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a situation. That's what it boils down to. So, all right, let's go ahead and move on here. What do you have for me at wide receiver?
Wide receiver, I have Julian Edelman of the Patriots.
Ooh. I wonder why.
I know, I'm really going on a limb on this one, but he's still fantasy football calculator. Actually, it has been dropping a little bit for him. They have him as wide receiver 38, 4th pick in the 8th round.
Okay.
Julian's not a spring chicken anymore, Kyle.
No,
age 34 now. And he's got a lot of question marks. Like I just said, age, injury concerns. He's been banged up here and there the last few years. And there's some guy that left.
Who is that?
I think it's like hashtag Twami.
Yeah. Good old immunity pills. Yeah.
Pills are good. Pills are good, Kyle. Pills are good.
Pills are good.
But I mean, this guy last year was a great year for Julian Edelman when it comes to actually where he finished and everything. But he's got the targets. He should still probably get the targets just because there's not a whole lot around him. N'Keal Harry, Jacoby Myers, James White. None of those names probably really scream, fantasy potential, fantasy upside, do they?
No, not unless you're an East Coast analyst.
Right.
You want N'Keal Harry. This team's going to be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, you want N'Keal Harry to be a guy. I mean, I know he's banged up last year. He just didn't do anything last year whenever he was on the field with Hall of Famer, one of the best of all times, the GOAT, Tom Brady. He still couldn't perform. That's why you just don't know what you're getting. You're getting Jared Stidham. You're getting Brian Hoyer at QB.
Yeah.
I just can't trust that.
No.
You know what I mean? He's still going to get the targets, I think. It's just what's the quality of those targets?
I mean, I think that anybody who's drafting him at this point, they're looking at it as depth or they're taking a chance. So you can look, the way that we roster build, you can get away with that, but you can't get away with that as wide receiver 38. You're drafting that guy as a really low wide receiver 3.
Impossible flex.
He should be able to find his way into your lineup in situational play, right? And Julian Edelman is not going to be able to offer that to you. Not necessarily. But that's my point. You can't predict when he's going to have a good game, most likely. So why would you put him in? Why would you take him in a spot where that's what you're anticipating? And even then, okay, so maybe you would draft him as like deep value, but when's he going to crack your lineup? That's not a guy you're getting upside out of. So why would you draft a guy with no upside, no predictability as your let's say he's your wide receiver 5. Like, why would you do that? You want a guy who might break open and be a consistent player who can slot into your wide receiver group. That's what you're looking for. And that's why you don't draft this player.
Yeah, that's rounds 8 through 12. Like I said, like he was 4th pick.
That's where you win.
That's where you win, and that's where you find those upside players. That's where you try to find a guy that could break out. You don't want to find a bench player that's just going to be a limited upside. Like, oh, hey, Julian got you 5 points this week.
Yeah.
Oh, he got you 6 points.
Look, you're going to miss on a lot of these.
Where's that 15-pointer? Or where's that? Oh, all of a sudden he's going to be getting, the target volume, which he will get, but he's not going to get you 100-plus yards or, a touchdown or 2. That's just not going to happen. He has to get a ton of volume to be fantasy relevant. Yeah. And this offense is just going to take a drastic drop. I mean, I'm thinking at least a 20% drop.
Can you tell me what their strength is going into the season? Like, what's their strength going to be on offense? You can't you can't figure it out.
Sony Michel is always banged up. He had another surgery this offseason.
But Damian Harris might steal the job.
He may, but he's got to get through James White as well, even though he's more of a third down passing. Like, Rex Burkhead's still there. Once again,
I don't think Rex Burkhead's going to make the team.
You said it before, though. Like, you just can't trust, Patriots. Like, you can't trust Patriots player. You really
I'm not knocking the guys. I'm just saying in fantasy, you can't predict what is going to be valuable there. This isn't the 07 Patriots where exactly what to have. That's not the situation.
Week to week. It's they play situational. They play what they're going to get from that defense, and if there's anything, no idea what it is.
But basically, like, if there's anything you take away from what we're talking about here, it's that you have to understand that if you're picking in these later middle rounds, guys who you think are a wide receiver 3/4, they better have a heck of a lot of upside. They better have a path to the ownership of that role. And look, you're going to miss out on a lot of these guys from round 6 through 12. You're going to miss out on a ton of guys. You're going to miss.
But you want to take a chance.
You need to take chances that might pay off.
Yep.
This is not going to pay off.
No.
And you just need to catch 1 or 2 guys out of that group. That's why you draft for depth in there. That's why you're drafting that depth. You want that upside. You want the opportunity, because if one of those guys takes off and you suddenly have a guy who's a wide receiver 2 and he jumps your wide receiver 3, now you're playing a wide receiver 1, a 2, and a 2, and you've moved a wide receiver 3 potentially to a flex spot.
Yep.
Then you've just improved your lineup by taking risk with upside. This is risk with no upside. Yeah. So do not draft Julian Edelman.
Yeah. Just another thing, like, a lot of people think of it as, Julian Edelman making the catch in the Super Bowl, the double clutch and all that stuff. But you mentioned it during our wide receiver episode. He was 7th worst in drop percentage last year at 8.5%.
Yeah.
He's also 18th worst at 7.3 yards per target.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to improve. With
this is a team that's turning into a clock control team. They're going to their defensive strength.
Yeah, that's their strength is their defense. Yeah. But a guy that's not going to get farther than probably 7.3 yards, who doesn't have burner speed, I mean, he's catching and going down.
He's a possession receiver, and people are drafting him as a wide receiver 3.
Yep.
Like, don't do that. Yeah. He offers, like, if you got a possession receiver that you're drafting as wide receiver 3, he better be fast, and he better be the wide receiver 1 in that offense.
Right.
Like, maybe Debo Samuel is that guy, right?
Debo!
Yeah. Debo! Yeah. All right. You ready to move on? Let's go ahead.
Yes, sir.
And hit the next wide receiver here that I have, and that is Keenan Allen. Yeah. It's going wide receiver 14.
Say what?
Oh, yeah. Wide receiver 14, pick 3 of the 4th round. And I'm not touching him with a 10-foot pole. And it's because you can't expect any of the stuff that he's done in his career to continue, period. You just can't. He's got Tyrod Taylor as the likely starter for the beginning of the season.
Right.
Followed by Justin Herbert, who at least half of the people who've graded Justin Herbert say he's the most likely bust out of the QBs drafted in the first round of the 2020 draft.
Yep.
So it's just not a good thing. Look, you can't expect positive results out of Allen that he enjoyed with Phillip Rivers. Like you just can't. You can't expect that to continue. He was 5th in targets, 2nd in receptions, 5th in yards, 6th in red zone receptions. He was also 11th in catchable targets, right? So he was getting pretty good passes thrown at him, and that's why he had that volume.
So, like, Kyle, this kind of just sounds like what we just talked about with Julian Edelman.
Yeah.
I mean, he lost Tom Brady's the GOAT, Hall of Famer. Phillip Rivers is on the fringe of being a Hall of Famer quarterback. I mean, that connection between Keenan Allen, Phillip Rivers, and that connection between Tom Brady and Julian Edelman, that can not be replicated. You know what I mean? That's gone already. And so, like you just, like you're saying, it's hard to replicate something like that when you have a Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's say that Justin Herbert has the job for the whole year. Can you imagine him producing a wide receiver 1 or an upside wide receiver 2?
That'd be really tough because I mean, you got Mike Williams on the outside as well. And you have Austin Eckler taking a bunch of receptions.
But don't rookie QBs favor their tight ends usually? And they've got some decent tight ends.
They got a guy named Hunter Henry. He's a guy.
Yeah. He's a guy.
He's good. He's a good guy.
But then, he's good. But yeah, so like, then you toss in Tyrod Taylor, who's the likely starter here.
Right.
Who I was telling you the other day, he has started 8 games or has played 8 games in the last 2 years. And last year he played 4 and he had a total of 6 fantasy points.
Yeah.
So this
his
is
last
a guy
meaningful snaps were probably in Cleveland, wasn't it?
Yeah. So this is not a guy that's going to produce a wide receiver 1. He's just not. He's new to the offense. This isn't his offense. He's just coming in and play. Yeah. And Anthony Lynn says that he's our guy and he's a good starter and everything. But the news today was saying that Anthony Lynn would consider Colin Kaepernick because Colin Kaepernick does what they want to do, meaning they want to actually have a Lamar Jackson style offense. They want to run the ball with the QB more. They want.
You couldn't do that last year?
I guess not, Mr. Check Down. Yeah. Yeah.
The only place he's running to is the bedroom to pump out another kid.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, nothing about Allen, about Keenan Allen says that he's incapable of having a bad season. Like there's nothing about it. This guy is the king of inconsistency when it comes to wide receivers. He had 8 games last year that were wide receiver 3 or worse. And when he was worse, he was a lot worse. So you're going to draft this guy as a borderline wide receiver 1. No, it's not odd. This is his career. This is a guy that you're going to draft as a borderline wide receiver 1, right? If you're getting that first or second pick in the draft, you're hoping that he's going to be there the next time you pick, right? Like that's where you're considering maybe he's going to fall to me. And name cachet is going to maybe put him there at the back of the second round for you, right? 4 of the games that he was wide receiver 3 or worse, 4 of those games were worse. Okay. And the others were mostly back of the wide receiver 3 category, like 30th or higher. Okay. So half of the season, you're not even getting a wide receiver 3, basically. You're barely getting a wide receiver 3. And you're going to draft him as a wide receiver 1/2. Why? You're looking for consistency. That's what you're looking for up in the front of the draft. You're looking for consistent guys who are going to perform for you. You're looking for upside later, but you're looking for consistency, reliability, a guy who's going to perform at the level that you draft him week in and week out, where he's going to have 1, 2, maybe 3 duds in the whole season. This guy had 8 last year with Rivers. You think he's going to have 8 or more this year? What's the over-under on that? All right? I'd peg it probably at 10.
Yeah.
This guy's not going to be a wide receiver 2 for you. He's just not. Look, he only broke 100 yards 1 time last year. That's with Mr. Deep Ball, Phillip Rivers. He only provided 4 weeks last year as a wide receiver 1. So in the 8 weeks that he wasn't wide receiver 3 or worse, he only gave you 4 wide receiver 1 weeks. And that's it.
Jeez.
So you add all that up, and you have a really rough season coming through for Keenan Allen right now.
Yeah.
Run away, right? Let's make it even worse, right? A bottom 10 schedule based on last year's fantasy points allowed to wide receiver.
Now you're just
that's the schedule. Yeah, that's the schedule he's facing, right? So look, if you want to draft Keenan Allen, where he's going, especially, you're doing that at your own risk. I'm not going to do that. I'm looking for consistency, and there's a ton more guys available at that spot where he's going that are more consistent. And again, he doesn't offer the upside that you're looking for in the middle of the draft. He doesn't offer it. Tell me when you're going to be able to look at it and go, yeah, I'm going to start him this week. Because you might have a great situation, right? Might have a great matchup, perfect matchup. They're not even starting 11 guys on defense, right? That kind of situation. But look at the QB play. What can you rely on out of those QBs to get you points out of Keenan Allen? You can't. That upside's gone. Keenan Allen's just inconsistent with good QB play. Why would he be better with guys who are actually worse QBs? We know them to be worse right now. I'm not saying Justin Herbert's going to be terrible, but he sure as heck is not as good as Phillip Rivers is right now.
No, he doesn't have that connection with him as well.
No. Yeah. All right, let's move on here. What do you have for me at tight end?
So this is a guy, if you watched our tight end episode, you might have been shocked where we had him ranked because it was pretty high. It was like a lot higher than probably what it should have been. And I think we both kind of mentioned when we were doing that episode that this is going to come back down to earth. And I think it's going to come back crashing and burning, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And he is Rob Gronkowski. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
Fantasy Football Calculator has him tight end number 9, 7th pick in the 8th round, Kyle. And he is an old 31 years old. Old 31. When you mention Raw, all you think of are just questions.
Yeah.
What are you going to get out of him? He retired for a whole year. You know what I mean? He's a spokesperson for CBD. He's the WWE heavyweight champion or 24/7 champion or whatever they do nowadays. That's what he is right now. You know what I mean? Like he was wrestling. He was doing all these different things. He didn't once mention that he was wanting to come back to football. Then #Twommy goes down to Tampa. It calls him up, be like, hey, I want you to play. And, I feel like he's one of those ones where you just can't say no to Tom. So can't blame him. I mean, very dreamy. So
yeah, Tom called him up and said, hey,
I want you to be on my team.
Yep. And hey, I got some immunity pills for you when you get down here.
Yeah, pills are good.
Pills good.
Yeah.
So Rob, once again, retired last year, didn't play at all. He hasn't played a full season since 2011. Dang near a decade. Injury concerns all over the place. I was going to pull up a player profile and it shows medical history. Yeah, my browser doesn't go that long. It doesn't go that long.
You're cashed out.
Yeah, it's just too much. There's 2 other tight ends on this roster as well. There might be a mention of one later. I don't know. We'll see. But O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate. And also, hey, they play for a team that is coached by Bruce Arians that is known to hate tight ends.
Yeah.
He hasn't publicly said that, but, I mean, you look at all the numbers. Yeah, it's pretty dang obvious. You look at all the numbers of him being a coach or offensive coordinator. The dude hates tight ends. He just wants them to block. Granted, Rob's a good blocker. Guess how many points that gets you for blocking in fantasy football?
Well, in most leagues, it's 0.
A whole lot of zilch.
Yep.
So another thing I think of is, okay, Rob's already retired once. Kyle, what happens if he gets hurt week 1 or week 2? And he just doesn't want to do the rehab. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to have to go through it all over again. I mean, the amount of rehab this guy has done, I can't imagine what that's done to his psyche. I know that really drains on these players, and what's to say that he gets hurt again? He's just like he deuces out. Do you really want a guy that is going to be chosen as a tight end 1, low end tight end 1, to have that many concerns? Do you want to count on that?
Yeah.
It's just way too risky for me based on his ADP. I mean, if he's there at around 14, 15, or 16, I usually don't say draft 2 tight ends, but if the guy's there at that,
You're taking a flyer, maybe.
You're taking
you're
taking a dart and you're throwing it at a board.
Well, you're betting that offense is somehow magically not going to be run by Bruce Arians. That's
right.
what you're doing. That Tom Brady's going to call the shots. That was the deal.
He'll call. I think he will call a good amount of the shots, but I think Bruce is another one of those guys that, he wants it to be his way as well. Mm-hmm. From what I've heard, I'm a big fan of Pat McAfee. He's always been raving about, Bruce Arians and how he coaches and everything like that. He's one of the guys, but it's still
he's a player's coach.
Yeah, he's still the coach though, and it's still his offense. So yes, Tom's going to have a lot of say in that offense, but it's still, at the end of the day, you're looking at Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. Mm-hmm. That's who you're looking at.
Well, and Bruce Arians has been effective in many different stops. It's not just that he's, hateful of tight ends. It's also that he's been effective elsewhere. And so he's got enough leverage with his effectiveness in play calling to be able to tell Brady, you play the plays I call. We'll let you do this or do that. But I think that for the most part, Tom Brady was audibling within the system when he was audibling in New England. And so he wants to fit within the system. So, yeah. Look, Brady will make the concession that he gets to throw deep to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans.
Right.
And Bruce Arians gets the extra blocker.
And once again, Rob's a dang good blocker.
Yep.
Always has been.
He's better than O.J. Howard.
And speaking of O.J. Howard, who do you have as your
all right? Yes, my
players
last
to avoid. Look at that segue.
Yeah, my tight end to avoid is O.J. Howard. And when it boils down to it,
don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. Don't draft O.J. Howard.
Don't draft Tampa Bay tight ends.
Yeah. Look, O.J. Howard is tight end 3 on this team. But right now he's going as tight end 11 on Fantasy Football Calculator in the 8th pick of the 9th round. Because, of course, why wouldn't you take the 3rd tight end on this offense as a tight end 1? Because that makes exactly 0 sense. What are you doing?
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. Look, I'm going to let this Tampa Bay tight end bashing continue. We've got Bruce Arians, who does not know what tight ends are. He just literally thinks that they are another offensive lineman.
He takes the E off of tight end, and he's just like, oh, he's a tackle.
Yeah. Look, I'll hit you with something else, dude. They're facing a bottom half schedule for tight ends this year based on fantasy points allowed last year.
Like the toughest?
They're in the bottom half. They're in the bottom half. I literally in my notes, I have a question. Why is O.J. Howard being drafted as a tight end 1? He's not even a tight end 1 on that team. That would either be Brady or Gronk. And this offense is not going to support a tight end 1. That's just not a thing that's going to happen. Like, why would anybody draft any of these guys as a tight end 1?
It's going to be tough to support a wide receiver 1, running back 3, couple running back 3s. Like, how is it going to support all of that and have 3 tight ends and support obviously 2 tight end 1s? Like, how is that possible? You're looking at the greatest offense of all time if that comes true, and I don't think that's going to happen. Let's come back down to earth a little bit.
Well, look at this. They were the number 3 team in pass plays called last year. Okay, number 3. However, O.J. Howard was 14th on just routes run.
Ooh.
So they called a lot of passes, and he didn't even go out to run routes on those plays.
And then on the field, probably.
And then not only that, he was 38th in target share among tight ends. So on the plays he did go out, when you count the target sharing that he had on the routes he ran, he was 38th. That's terrible. This is not a guy who's even a tight end 3. He's not. On an offense that's the 3rd leading in pass play calls, why would you think that this is a tight end 1? Jeez. I mean,
because he was a first-round pick, Kyle.
They called,
obviously.
Let me break down the numbers for you, right? Okay, they called 42.3 pass plays per game last year, and O.J. Howard saw 3.857 targets a game.
That doesn't sound good.
Yeah. Cameron Brate
Jameis was throwing it all over the place.
Well, Cameron Brate
couldn't
had
even luck into one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you would think there would have been a tip pass at some point, right? Cameron Brate had an even 4 targets a game last year, and he played the same amount of games as O.J. Howard. So O.J. Howard wasn't even the tight end one last year on that offense. This is just look, this is terrible numbers, even if they stay consistent at best. Like, if it plays out the same as last year, it's still not worth having.
Not good.
Most likely numbers are going to go down, because if any tight end's going to get favored by Brady,
who's it going to be?
Who's that going to be? I have no idea. Who could it possibly be? Yeah.
And even with that, we don't think it's going to be worth what that person's going for.
Well, not only that, Cameron Brate's a better pass catcher than O.J. Howard. Like, this guy is not going to get you where you want to go. And he's being drafted as tight end 11. Tight end 11. This is a starter. If you draft one tight end on your roster and it's this guy, you didn't draft a tight end. You just didn't. You didn't draft a tight end.
You didn't win your draft.
No, well, you're going to have week 1. You're going to be hitting the waiver wire. Like,
you're going to be streaming tight end after just drafting.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't pick up a tight end this year. Just streaming it without a slot. Yeah. Look, this is an offense that has. You made the point. They have a ton of weapons in the passing game, and Howard is moving the wrong direction down that progression in who's going to get the ball thrown at them.
Hey, I wonder, he's one of those ones that you've kind of seen his name on the trade rumor list as well.
Yeah.
If he gets traded, maybe, but it's one of those things.
The rumors died. The rumors died because nobody wanted him.
Right.
Let me like think of it this way, okay? The reason people are drafting him there is because they think that magically Tom Brady's going to decide that O.J. Howard is the second coming of Gronkowski, even though he has Gronkowski on the field, right? Look, let me hit you with this list of targets, okay? Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronk, Brate, Ronald Jones, and Keyshawn Vaughn.
And they have another running back. I can't say
Dare Ogunbowale.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's a decent pass catching running back as well.
As I count it, he's like the 5th best option in the passing attack if he's lucky. If
he stays on Bruce's good side, 5th.
if Bruce Arians suffers a concussion at the start of every football game and someone else has to call the plays, maybe he's tight end 2 on that squad.
Maybe.
Yeah. Look, I don't get it. I don't get how he's going as tight end 11. He was tight end 30 last year in fantasy points per game. And Cameron Brate was tight end 25.
And then we'll bring in another tight end. So, it makes perfect sense, Kyle. I don't know what you're talking about.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, he had a bad year, right? Okay, maybe he missed some games. He played 14 games at a position that lost probably half of the guys who started in fantasy football for anybody, tight end wise. They probably got hurt at some point and had to be replaced. And this dude managed to still start 14 games. And he still finished tight end 30. I mean, my gosh, why would you take that guy? Why would you want him? People are overestimating him solely on the addition of Mr. Immunity Pills, Tom Brady. That's the only reason that people are like, well, maybe he's going to do better than tight end 30 this year. Well, is he going to do better than tight end 3 on his team? I don't think so.
He's going to have 2 guys go down with injury.
Yeah.
Even then.
Well, he's not going to finish.
He's not going to show out that value that you're gonna have to cough up for them, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy talk. It really is. All right, so that brings us to the end of our players to avoid.
Yep.
Please avoid. Please avoid Tampa Bay tight ends.
Please.
Yes. All right, guys. So you've got us here on YouTube if you're watching us. We're at the Fantasy Football Upside. You can also get us on Twitter over at FFB_upside. Facebook, we're at FFB Upside. You can search for us at the Fantasy Football Upside there. You can also catch us on Spotify. What else
Apple
we got? We got
Podcast.
Stitcher, Apple, and you can get us directly at Podbean.
Yep.
We've got a few over there, actually. And let's see here. You can also get us directly on email. For the time being, you can still get us on email at it's the fantasy football upside at gmail.com. And as Justin said before, feel free to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It would really help us out here. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit that bell too, because that way you get notified when we upload the podcast to YouTube. And subscribe on any audio podcastings that you're getting so that you get downloaded automatically. And thanks for being a fan of the Fantasy Football Upside. And we will see you next time.
See you guys.
Bye.